America has built some of the most iconic sports cars in history, but not all of them became household names. These 12 classics had the speed, the style, and the performance, yet somehow they faded into obscurity. From forgotten muscle machines to rare high-performance gems, these lost legends deserve a second look. Get ready to rediscover the hidden icons of American speed. The 1956 and 1958 Studebaker Golden Hawk was a bold and daring attempt by Studebaker to create a high-performance Grand Touring coupe that could rival the best American cars of its time. Introduced as the flagship of Studebaker's Hawk series, the Golden Hawk combined sleek European-inspired styling with American muscle, resulting in one of the most distinctive and underrated performance cars of the late 1950s. Despite its impressive speed and unique supercharged engine, the Golden Hawk was ultimately overshadowed by more mainstream competitors, making it a rare and fascinating collectible today. At a time when American automakers were embracing excess in both design and engineering, Studebaker sought to carve out its own niche with the Golden Hawk. The car featured a long, low-slung body with a wide, upright grille, pronounced tail fins, and a pillarless, hardtop roofline that gave it a sporty yet elegant appearance. Unlike the swoopy, rounded designs of Chevrolet and Ford, Studebaker's approach was sharper and more aggressive, creating a car that looked fast even when standing still. The Golden Hawk's striking proportions and aerodynamic profile were influenced by Studebaker's partnership with Raymond Loewy, the famed industrial designer behind many of the company's most beautiful creations. Under the hood, the Golden Hawk was a serious performer, offering some of the highest horsepower figures of its time. When it debuted in 1956, it was powered by a massive 352 cubic inch, 5.8L Packard V8, producing 275 horsepower and 380 lb-ft of torque, numbers that put it ahead of many early Corvettes and Thunderbirds. Thanks to its relatively low weight of around 3,400 pounds, the Golden Hawk had an exceptional power-to-weight ratio, allowing it to out-accelerate many larger American performance cars of the era. In straight-line speed, it was a serious contender. However, the Packard-sourced engine was both a blessing and a curse. While it gave the car its powerful acceleration, it was also large and heavy, affecting the car's weight distribution and making handling somewhat tricky. The Golden Hawk had a significant front-end weight bias, which led to noticeable understeer and made high-speed cornering a challenge. Additionally, the car's narrow track and relatively stiff suspension meant that body roll was more pronounced than in some of its competitors. While it was a fast and exciting car in a straight line, it required skill and patience to drive aggressively on winding roads. For the 1957 and 1958 models, Studebaker made a dramatic change to the powertrain, switching from the heavy Packard V8 to their own lighter 289 cubic inch, 4.7L Studebaker V8. To compensate for the lower displacement, Studebaker engineers fitted a McCulloch supercharger, boosting output back up to 275 horsepower while significantly reducing weight. This made the later Golden Hawks more balanced and responsive, while still maintaining their high-speed capability. The supercharged engine also gave the car a distinctive whine, making it one of the most unique-sounding performance cars of its time. The supercharged Golden Hawk was, in many ways, ahead of its time. Forced induction was still a rarity in American performance cars, and Studebaker's use of a supercharger was a daring move that set the car apart from its competitors. While it wasn't as refined as the Thunderbird or as raw as the Corvette, it offered a compelling blend of performance and style that appealed to enthusiasts looking for something different. Despite its impressive capabilities, the Golden Hawk faced several challenges in the marketplace. Studebaker was already in financial trouble by the mid-1950s, and they lacked the resources to properly market or develop the Golden Hawk against its better-funded rivals. The Ford Thunderbird, which had shifted from a two-seater to a personal luxury coupe, was an enormous sales success, while Chevrolet's fuel-injected Corvette became the definitive American sports car. Compared to these two, the Golden Hawk remained a niche vehicle, appealing primarily to buyers who wanted something exotic and unconventional. Another issue was the car's price. The Golden Hawk was positioned as a premium performance car, but Studebaker's reputation was not on the same level as Ford, Chrysler, or GM. Buyers were hesitant to pay a high price for a Studebaker, no matter how fast it was. As a result, sales remained modest, and by 1959, Studebaker discontinued the model in favor of the Silverhawk and later the Gran Turismo Hawk, which were more luxurious and less focused on performance. Today, the Golden Hawk is a rare and underappreciated classic. It was one of the most powerful cars of the 1950s, one of the first American cars to use a factory supercharger, and a standout in terms of design. While it never achieved the same legendary status as the Thunderbird or Corvette, the 1962-1964 Studebaker Avanti was one of the most daring and unconventional cars ever to come from an American automaker. At a time when chrome-laden land yachts dominated the roads, Studebaker took a bold leap into the future with a fiberglass-bodied personal sports car that looked like nothing else on the market. The Avanti was meant to be a halo car, a showcase of what Studebaker was capable of in an effort to restore the company's image as an innovative automaker. Although it never reached its full potential due to Studebaker's financial troubles, the Avanti remains one of the most fascinating and collectible American cars of the 1960s. The Avanti's futuristic styling was unlike anything seen on American roads. Designed by Raymond Loewy, the legendary industrial designer behind the Coca-Cola bottle and the Pennsylvania Railroad's streamlined locomotives, the Avanti was sleek, elegant, and aerodynamic. It featured a long, low-slung body, a smooth, almost grille-less front end, and a fastback roofline that gave it a European Grand Tour aesthetic. The absence of a traditional grille was a major design innovation, with air intake routed through openings beneath the front bumper, giving the car a distinctive, almost space-age look. Curved glass, frameless windows, and hidden windshield wipers further added to the Avanti's futuristic appeal. Under the hood, the Avanti was just as radical. Studebaker took their existing 289 cubic inch 4.7L V8 and pushed it to new heights. In standard form, the engine produced a respectable 240 horsepower, but the real magic happened with the Avanti R2 version, which added a Paxton supercharger, boosting output to 289 horsepower, an impressive feat for a 1962 production car. This made the Avanti R2 one of the fastest American cars of the early 1960s, capable of 0-60 mph in around 7.5 seconds, and a top speed of over 130 mph, making it a legitimate high-performance machine in an era when muscle cars were just beginning to take shape. For those who wanted even more power, Studebaker briefly offered the ultra-rare R3 version, a hand-built, high-performance variant featuring a modified engine with output exceeding 335 horsepower. A handful of R3-powered Avantis were tested at the Bonneville Salt Flats, where they set multiple speed records, proving the car's high-speed capabilities. One R3 Avanti even reached 168 mph, making it one of the fastest American cars of its time. Beyond straight-line speed, the Avanti was also ahead of its time in terms of engineering. It featured front disc brakes, making it one of the first American production cars to include this feature as standard equipment. This provided vastly improved stopping power compared to the drum brakes used by most competitors. The car's fiberglass body, while difficult to manufacture in large numbers, made it relatively lightweight and resistant to rust. Additionally, the Avanti had a reinforced frame with a built-in roll bar, making it safer than most cars of the era in the event of a rollover. Unfortunately, despite its brilliance, the Avanti was a victim of Studebaker's worsening financial crisis. Production delays plagued the car from the beginning. The fiberglass body panels, sourced from outside suppliers, caused serious bottlenecks in production, leading to long wait times for customers. Many buyers who had initially placed orders for the Avanti became frustrated and canceled when their cars failed to arrive on schedule. The delays, combined with Studebaker's ongoing struggles, meant that the Avanti never had a chance to succeed. By late 1963, Studebaker shut down its South Bend, Indiana plant, where the Avanti was built. Though Studebaker continued as a company for a few more years, its automotive division ceased production in 1966, effectively ending the Avanti's run under the Studebaker name. However, the Avanti's story didn't end there. Two Studebaker dealers, Nate Altman and Leo Newman, were so passionate about the car that they purchased the rights to the design and continued producing it under the name Avanti. These later versions, built in small numbers, were based on Chevrolet platforms and engines, ensuring that the Avanti name survived well beyond Studebaker's demise. Over the years, the Avanti passed through multiple ownerships, with various companies continuing to build it in limited numbers. Some later versions featured updated styling, modernized interiors, and even convertible body styles. But none quite captured the original car's groundbreaking essence. Today, the Studebaker Avanti is a highly sought-after collectible, admired for its ahead-of-its-time styling, impressive performance, and rarity. It represents one of the last great efforts by an independent American automaker to challenge the industry giants. While it may not have saved Studebaker, the Avanti succeeded in leaving behind a legacy as one of the most unique and innovative American cars of the 1960s. The late 1960s were a golden era for muscle cars. Ford had the Mustang, Chevrolet had the Camaro, and Dodge had the Charger. But among all the big names, there was a company that never quite played by the same rules, AMC. Known for their unconventional approach, AMC decided to shake things up in 1968 by building something no other American manufacturer had attempted, a true two-seater muscle car. That's how the AMC AMX was born, a car that dared to be different in every way. At first glance, the AMX looked like a smaller, more aggressive version of its four-seat sibling, the Javelin. But the differences ran deeper than just size. The AMX wasn't a pony car, it was something in between a muscle car and a sports car. With its short 97-inch wheelbase, it had one of the most compact designs of any American V8-powered car at the time. And unlike the big block behemoths from GM, Ford, and Mopar, the AMX prioritized weight reduction, which gave it a distinct edge in handling and acceleration. For power, AMC didn't hold back. You could order the AMX with a 290, 343, or 390 cubic inch V8, but the real star was the 390 V8, pumping out 315 horsepower and 425 lb of torque. That kind of power in such a small car made it an absolute rocket off the line. In the hands of a skilled driver, an AMX with a 390 could hit 60 miles an hour in just over 6 seconds and tear through the quarter mile in the mid-14s. Serious performance for the time. It was lighter and faster than many of its competitors, proving that brute force wasn't the only way to build a muscle car. And then there was the styling. The AMX had an aggressive, athletic stance with its long hood, fastback roofline, and wide rear haunches, giving it a sense of motion even when standing still. AMC even made sure the AMX stood out with some of the wildest colors available: Big Bad Orange, Big Bad Green, and Big Bad Blue. Because if you were driving a car this unique, you wanted everyone to see it. One owner, Tom R., who bought an AMX brand new in 1969, still remembers the first time he laid eyes on it at the dealership. It was sitting there in Big Bad Blue with the stripes down the center. I didn't even test drive it, I just knew I had to have it. The salesman started talking about financing, but I told him to just get the paperwork ready because I wasn't leaving without that car. And once Tom got behind the wheel, he realized he had something special. It was like a slingshot. You'd step on the bow and the whole car would just squat down and go. I had a buddy with a Chevelle SS 396, and I used to beat him off the line all the time because my car was so much lighter. He hated it, but I loved it. Performance wasn't the only thing that made the AMX special. It also had the kind of driver-focused feel that muscle cars of the era often lacked. With its short wheelbase and lower weight, the AMX had sharper handling than most American cars of the time. It was still a brute when pushed hard, but it felt more nimble and controlled than the bigger muscle cars it competed against. But for all its strengths, the AMX had one major weakness: it wasn't practical. While muscle car buyers were happy to compromise comfort for performance, they weren't ready to give up the rear seats. The AMX's two-seat layout made it feel like an exotic car, but it also made it harder to sell. Unlike the Chevrolet Corvette, which had a long history of two-seat performance, the AMX was trying to compete in a market that just wasn't ready for a two-seat muscle car. And then there was the issue of branding. AMC wasn't a performance powerhouse like Ford or Chevy, so despite the AMX's solid performance and affordable price, it struggled to gain recognition. Buyers who wanted a muscle car tended to go for the well-known names like Mustang, Camaro, or Challenger, while those who wanted a two-seater often went straight for a Corvette. AMC did their best to promote the AMX as a high-performance machine, even putting it in the hands of legendary driver Craig Breedlove, who used it to set 106 speed and endurance records on the Bonneville Salt Flats. But despite its impressive credentials, the AMX remained a niche vehicle. AMC built just over 19,000 units across 3 model years, and by 1971, the two-seat AMX was gone. The name would live on as a performance trim for the Javelin, but the pure two-seat AMX was never seen again. Today, the AMX is a rare and highly sought-after classic, with collectors appreciating its bold styling, unique design, and underdog status. It's one of the few muscle cars that dared to be different, proving that speed and power didn't always have to come in a massive 4-seat package. For those lucky enough to have owned one, the AMX remains unforgettable. "It was the best car I ever had," Tom says. "I wish I never sold it. Every time I hear one at a car show, that deep V8 rumble brings back all the memories." It wasn't just a muscle car, it was something special. The 1904 Ford Fairlane Thunderbolt stands as a true icon of American automotive engineering, a rare example of a purpose-built race car designed for the drag strip but made available to the public. The Thunderbolt was the brainchild of Ford, working in close collaboration with legendary performance expert Carroll Shelby. With the Fairlane Thunderbolt, Ford aimed to create a car that would not only meet the rigorous demands of the NHRA Superstars class, but would also take on its competitors, most notably Chevrolet's Chevelle and Pontiac's GTO. But the Thunderbolt was much more than just a race car. It was a statement of Ford's commitment to performance and speed. The Fairlane Thunderbolt was powered by Ford's mighty 427 cubic inch V8, a behemoth of an engine capable of producing 425 horsepower and 480 foot of torque. This engine was paired with a heavy-duty 4-speed manual transmission, making the car a raw, no-frills drag machine. The Thunderbolt wasn't interested in luxury or comfort. It was designed with one goal in mind: speed. Ford made sure that everything about the Thunderbolt screamed performance, starting with its lightweight construction. Ford shaved off everything that wasn't essential for a race car, stripping out interior components like the rear seat, soundproofing, and even the spare tire. The use of a fiberglass hood and front bumper helped reduce weight even further, ensuring that every ounce was working toward making the Thunderbolt faster. This weight-saving strategy paid off, as the Thunderbolt could achieve a quarter-mile time of 11.6 seconds at over 125 mph, an astonishing feat for the time. It was a car designed to be brutally fast, with its suspension, gearing, and braking systems all tuned to deliver the best straight-line performance possible. It wasn't made to be an everyday driver, nor was it built for comfort. It was made for the drag strip, where it could dominate. But despite its performance credentials, the Thunderbolt wasn't a car for everyone. Ford built only 100 units of the Thunderbolt, making it an incredibly rare car even in its own time. These cars were sold primarily to professional racers and serious enthusiasts, ensuring that it would never become a mass-market vehicle. Even then, its price and specialized nature meant that it remained a limited edition, a true collector's item in the making from the very beginning. As an extremely limited production model, the Thunderbolt became an elusive treasure, with only a few remaining examples today. Owner stories from those fortunate enough to have owned one in the 1960s and 1970s paint a vivid picture of the Thunderbolt's significance. Dave H., a former owner who bought his Thunderbolt in 1965, recalls the first time he took it to the track. "I remember firing it up for the first time and hearing that massive 427 roar to life. I was shaking with excitement. Then I took it down the track, and it was pure magic. I had the power, I had the performance, and I knew I had a car that was unlike anything else on the road. You could hear it coming from a mile away, and when it hit the line, it was gone before you could blink." Indeed, the sound of the Thunderbolt is part of its legend. With that massive 427 engine rumbling beneath the hood, The Thunderbolt's roar was unmistakable, and it echoed throughout the drag strip. It was the sound of raw American muscle of a car that was bred for one thing: winning. Jim P., a current owner who restored a Thunderbolt in the early 2000s, shares a similar sentiment. When I first got my hands on the Thunderbolt, I knew I was dealing with a piece of history. The performance was incredible, raw and unrelenting. Restoring it wasn't easy, but now it's one of the crown jewels of my collection. At car shows, people come up to me all the time asking about it. The Thunderbolt is a rare bird. When you drive it, you're not just driving a car, you're driving a legend. What made the Thunderbolt so special wasn't just the performance or its rare status. It was its role in the history of drag racing and muscle cars. The Thunderbolt was Ford's way of proving that they could build a car that would hold its own in the world of high-performance racing. While it was never meant to be a car that would fit into the average consumer's daily life, it was a car that left a lasting impact on the automotive world, particularly in the world of drag racing. And yet, despite its storied history and incredible performance, the Thunderbolt never won the kind of widespread fame that other muscle cars of the era did. It was never a mainstream hit. It was too specialized, too raw, and too extreme for the average buyer. After its limited production run, Ford moved on to other projects, and the Thunderbolt faded into the background of automotive history. However, its legacy lived on, and today it is one of the most sought-after collector's items, prized for its rarity, performance, and significance in the muscle car era. The Mercury Cougar Eliminator, produced between 1967 and 1968, was one of those hidden gems in the world of American muscle cars. While the Mustang grabbed most of the attention during the muscle car era, the Cougar Eliminator quietly carved out its own niche, offering a blend of power, style, and handling that made it a force to be reckoned with, yet often overshadowed by its more famous competitors. Mercury, Ford's upscale brand, introduced the Cougar in 1967 as a more refined, slightly more luxurious alternative to the Mustang. The Cougar offered a similar pony car experience, but with a focus on comfort, making it a great choice for those who wanted a sporty car with a more premium feel. However, Mercury wasn't content with just offering a refined version of the Mustang. They wanted to inject some serious performance into the mix, which led to the creation of the Cougar Eliminator. The Eliminator variant was introduced in 1969 as a high-performance model, but the groundwork was laid in the 1967 and 1968 models. The 1967 Mercury Cougar was powered by the legendary 289 cubic inch V8 engine, producing 225 horsepower. But it wasn't until the Eliminator package was added that the car's performance really stood out. This was a true muscle car with an aggressive 390 cubic inch V8 engine producing 335 horsepower, making it capable of challenging the best of the era. For many owners, the Eliminator package wasn't just about performance, it was about style. The Eliminator featured bold racing stripes, a blacked-out grille, and the iconic Eliminator badging, which set it apart from the standard Cougar. But while it looked like a classic muscle car, the Cougar Eliminator's performance was what truly made it special. It came with a close ratio 4-speed manual transmission, a heavy-duty suspension, and a limited slip rear axle to ensure it could handle the power it was packing. This was a car that wasn't just built for straight-line speed, but for all-around performance, giving drivers a thrilling driving experience. What made the Cougar Eliminator stand out even more was its ability to balance performance with comfort. Unlike other muscle cars that sacrifice ride quality for power, the Cougar Eliminator was engineered with an emphasis on comfort, making it an enjoyable car to drive both on the street and on the track. For many owners, this blend of speed and luxury was one of the key selling points of the Eliminator. It wasn't just a car for the drag strip, it was a car that could be driven every day while still offering the thrills of a performance machine. Owner reviews from the time echo this sentiment, with many praising the Eliminator for its raw power and handling. One owner, Dan M., who purchased his 1968 Cougar Eliminator in the late 1960s, fondly remembers his time with the car. "I had the 390 under the hood, and it was something else. The engine roared, and when I hit the gas, you could feel the power pushing you back into the seat. But what made the Eliminator so special was that it wasn't just about speed. It handled like a dream too. I could take it out for a cruise, or I could take it to the track and leave other cars in the dust. Despite its strong performance credentials, the Mercury Cougar Eliminator never received the same widespread recognition as its counterparts, like the Mustang, Camaro, or Chevelle. While the Eliminator was a potent competitor, its relatively small production numbers and the shadow cast by more famous muscle cars meant that it often got lost in the shuffle. In addition, by the early 1970s, stricter emissions regulations and rising insurance rates began to take their toll on the muscle car market, further diminishing the appeal of cars like the Eliminator. As time went on, the Cougar Eliminator faded into obscurity, but it didn't go unnoticed by collectors. Today, the Cougar Eliminator is considered a rare and valuable piece of muscle car history. The car's combination of style, power, and handling, along with its relatively low production numbers, has made it a sought-after collectible. Those who are lucky enough to own one, or who have restored one in recent years, often describe the Eliminator as a true underdog among classic American sports cars, a car that offered just as much performance as the big names of the era, but without the same level of recognition. Current owners and enthusiasts who still have the Cougar Eliminator speak of it with reverence. John H., a modern-day owner, says, "There's something about the Cougar Eliminator that's just so special. It's not just about the power or the performance, it's the whole experience of driving it. You feel like you're part of history when you're behind the wheel. The Eliminator may not have been as famous as the Mustang, but for me, it's one of the most complete muscle cars ever made." The Mercury Cougar Eliminator may not have been the loudest or most popular muscle car of its time, but its understated elegance. The Pontiac Firebird formula, produced from 1967 to 1969, was an underrated performance machine that laid the foundation for what would become one of Pontiac's most iconic models, the Trans Am. While the Trans Am would go on to gain legendary status in the muscle car world, the Firebird formula was the car that paved the way for its success. Its combination of style, performance, and handling made it a standout choice for enthusiasts who wanted a balance of both raw power and driving refinement. Introduced as a trim package for the 1967 Firebird, the Firebird formula was designed to offer a more performance-oriented alternative to the standard Firebird model. Pontiac had created the Firebird to compete with the likes of the Ford Mustang and the Chevrolet Camaro. But with the formula version, they aimed to deliver a more potent and dynamic driving experience. The Firebird formula's performance-focused features set it apart from the base model Firebird, positioning it as a true contender in the muscle car wars. Under the hood, the Firebird formula was equipped with a range of powerful engines, starting with the 326 cubic inch V8, which made a respectable 250 horsepower. However, the real standout was the available 400 cubic inch V8, which cranked out an impressive 325 horsepower. This engine gave the Firebird formula its muscle car credentials, providing exhilarating acceleration and plenty of torque for thrilling straight-line performance. The formula was also offered with a choice of transmissions, including a 4-speed manual, which made it an engaging car to drive, especially when paired with the larger V8 engine. What truly set the Firebird formula apart from other muscle cars of the time was its blend of power and refinement. While cars like the Camaro and Mustang were known for their raw, sometimes rough, handling, the Firebird formula offered a more polished driving experience. Pontiac focused on providing a smooth and comfortable ride without sacrificing performance. The formula was equipped with a heavy-duty suspension, which helped improve cornering and overall handling, making it one of the more well-rounded muscle cars of its era. Styling-wise, the Firebird formula retained the sleek, aggressive look of the Firebird, with its long hood, short rear deck, and sharp lines. However, the formula trim package added subtle touches that gave it a more serious appearance, including a functional hood scoop, twin-scooped rear end, and sportier wheels. These visual cues signaled to the onlookers that the Firebird formula was more than just another base model. It was a car that meant business. While the Firebird formula may have lacked the iconic nameplate and the racetrack-ready reputation of the Trans Am, it was still a highly respected model among Pontiac enthusiasts. Owners at the time appreciated its more refined approach to performance, as it offered a better balance of everyday drivability and thrilling power. The car was fast, but it was also comfortable and easier to drive than some of its more aggressive competitors. Owner reviews from the late 1960s reflect this sentiment. For example, Mark D., who bought a 1968 Firebird Formula New, remembers, "It was everything I wanted in a muscle car. It had the power, the handling, and it wasn't as harsh as some of the other cars out there. It was a car you could drive every day, but still feel like you were in something special when you punched the throttle." However, despite its performance and appeal, the Firebird Formula didn't have the same name recognition as the Trans Am. The Firebird Formula was often overshadowed by its flashier sibling, the Trans Am, which was introduced in 1969 and quickly became Pontiac's muscle car star. With its more aggressive styling, high-performance features, and association with motorsports, the Trans Am stole much of the attention that might have gone to the Firebird Formula. As a result, the Formula version of the Firebird remains somewhat of a forgotten hero in the muscle car world, despite its solid performance and sophisticated driving dynamics. Today, the Pontiac Firebird Formula is considered a rare and valuable classic, especially the 1967-1969 models, as they were produced in relatively limited numbers compared to other muscle cars of the era. Collectors appreciate the Firebird Formula for its understated appeal and its role as a precursor to the Trans Am, with some even considering it a better driving car due to its more balanced suspension and handling characteristics. Owner testimonials from modern-day Firebird Formula enthusiasts continue to praise the car's blend of performance and refinement. John R., a current owner of a 1968 Firebird Formula, shares, "It's a car that doesn't need to shout to be noticed. It's got the power and performance, but it's also a car that feels at home on both the street and the track. It's got a kind of understated elegance that makes it stand out without being in your face." The 1970 Dodge Challenger RT remains one of the most iconic muscle cars of the classic era. When it was introduced, it quickly became a symbol of raw American power, with aggressive styling and a performance pedigree that matched its bold presence on the road. While the Challenger name has been revived in modern times, the early RT models from 1970 hold a special place in automotive history, representing the peak of muscle car design and engineering. When Dodge launched the Challenger in 1970, it was designed to take on the Chevrolet Camaro and Ford Mustang, both of which had established themselves as dominant players in the pony car market. Dodge, however, went a step further by making the Challenger a full-size muscle car, offering more interior space and a more aggressive stance than its rivals. The RT, or road track model, was the performance-focused trim, featuring upgrades that gave it a performance edge over the base models. Under the hood of the 1970 Challenger RT, buyers had the option of two iconic power plants, the 383 cubic inch V8 and the legendary 426 Hemi V8. The 383 engine, rated at 335 horsepower, provided thrilling acceleration and plenty of torque, making the Challenger RT a true contender on the street and the strip. However, it was the 426 Hemi V8 that cemented the Challenger RT's status as a muscle car legend. The Hemi engine produced an astounding 425 horsepower and could rocket the car to 60 mph in under 6 seconds, an impressive feat for the time. The Challenger RT was not just about raw power, though. It also offered impressive handling for a car of its size, thanks to its wide track and the addition of heavy-duty suspension components. Dodge engineers designed the Challenger to provide an exhilarating driving experience, whether on the drag strip or winding through curves. With options like the Super Track Pack, which included a heavy-duty rear axle, upgraded suspension, and performance tires, the RT could be fine-tuned for the street or the strip, making it a favorite among enthusiasts. Styling-wise, the Challenger RT exuded muscle car aggression. With its long, sculpted hood, wide stance, and high-performance grille, the RT was designed to intimidate. The aggressive styling was complemented by the availability of bold color options like Plum Crazy Purple, Hemi Orange, and Go Mango, making it a standout on the road. The RT badge was prominently displayed, and the car's dual scooped hood and muscle car proportions sent a clear message that this was a vehicle built for speed. Inside, the Challenger RT offered a driver-focused experience with sport bucket seats, a tachometer, and a center console to match the car's high-performance aspirations. The interior was functional and comfortable, but the real magic of the RT lay under the hood, where the raw muscle of its engine could be unleashed. Despite its power and presence, the 1970 Challenger RT faced stiff competition in the muscle car market, with the Chevrolet Camaro SS and Ford Mustang Boss 302 claiming significant attention. However, the Challenger RT's combination of brute force, distinctive styling, and overall performance made it a standout vehicle in its own right. Even though the car's production numbers were relatively limited, it quickly earned its place in muscle car history. The legacy of the 1970 Challenger RT has only grown over time. Today, the original Challenger RT is one of the most sought-after classic muscle cars, with prices climbing as collectors and enthusiasts recognize its significance in the history of American performance cars. However, despite its legendary status, the Challenger RT is often overlooked in favor of later muscle car models, particularly the more famous 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS or the Shelby GT500 Mustang. Some argue that this is due to the Challenger's relatively short production run, just 2 years, making it less ubiquitous than some of its rivals. Owner reviews from the era paint a picture of a car that not only delivered on power but also provided an unforgettable driving experience. A former owner of a 1970 Challenger RT, John T., recalls, "When I first drove the RT, it felt like I was in control of a beast. The engine roared, and the car responded like it was eager to run. It wasn't just a muscle car, it was a statement." Another owner, Mark S., who had a 383-powered RT, remembers, "It wasn't just fast, it had a road presence like nothing else. People would stop and stare. The rumble from the exhaust, the stance, everything about it just screamed performance. It was a car that could back up its looks." But not everyone who owned the Challenger RT was completely satisfied. Some drivers, particularly those who bought the car as a daily driver, found it difficult to live with, especially given its stiff suspension and limited interior space. A few owners also noted the high maintenance cost of the big block engines, especially the Hemi version. The Plymouth Barracuda, particularly in its early years from 1964 to 1966, is often overshadowed by its later, more powerful muscle car versions. However, these initial models played an essential role in the development of American performance cars, offering a mix of sporty design, agile handling, and a sense of performance that, while not as extreme as its later counterparts, laid the foundation for what would become a legendary name in the muscle car era. When Plymouth introduced the Barracuda in 1964, it was an answer to the growing popularity of compact, sporty coupes. Chrysler, looking to expand its appeal to younger buyers and compete with the Ford Mustang, released the Barracuda with a design that was both fresh and innovative. The car's most striking feature was its large wraparound rear window, a unique design element that set it apart from other cars on the market and gave it a distinct look. The early Barracuda models were not initially designed to be muscle cars. Instead, they were marketed as compact, affordable sports coupes aimed at buyers who wanted a stylish car that still retained practicality. The base engine was a 170 cubic inch slant 6, producing 101 horsepower, which was more than enough for daily driving and offered decent fuel economy for its size. While this engine wasn't built for high performance, it provided the Barracuda with an agile handling characteristic that made it a fun, responsive car to drive. For those looking for more performance, Plymouth offered a range of V8 engine options. The most potent option at the time was the 273 cubic inch V8, producing 235 horsepower. While this was a far cry from the later muscle car versions of the Barracuda, it was still a respectable amount of power for a compact car, allowing the Barracuda to have an athletic feel on the road without the raw, uncontrollable power that would characterize its later models. This V8 variant of the Barracuda offered a nice balance of performance and livability, making it a strong competitor in the burgeoning pony car market. The early Barracuda was praised for its handling, with a well-tuned suspension system that made it agile on the road. Its small size made it easy to maneuver, and the car felt light and responsive, qualities that were appealing to drivers who enjoyed a more nimble driving experience rather than a heavy, muscle-bound car. The compact dimensions and relatively light weight allowed the Barracuda to be an enjoyable car to drive on twisty back roads, making it feel more like a true sports car compared to the larger, more cumbersome muscle cars that would follow. The interior of the early Barracuda was designed to be simple and functional. While it didn't offer the high-end features or luxurious finishes of more expensive cars, it was comfortable for its time, with seating for four and enough room for everyday needs. The design was focused on practicality, with the dashboard and controls arranged to make driving as intuitive as possible. Though not luxurious, the interior did offer a sense of style, especially in the two-door coupe configuration, which featured a sporty yet approachable layout. Despite its appealing characteristics, the early Barracuda was not a major sales success. Many car buyers in the 1960s still preferred larger, more traditional cars or sedans, and the Barracuda's smaller size and modest performance did not capture the same attention as the Ford Mustang, which quickly became a sensation after its release in 1964. The Mustang's success was largely due to its performance options and larger range of customization, which made it a more exciting option for buyers seeking something with more power and flair. Owner reviews from the era reflect mixed feelings about the early Barracuda. Some drivers appreciated its handling and stylish looks, but felt that it lacked the raw power and aggression of other performance cars. One owner, Dave J., who had a 1965 Barracuda, noted, "It was a fun car to drive, but it never had that kick that I wanted. Still, it was a great daily driver and handled so well. You could toss it around corners, and it always felt planted." Another owner, Janet W., who owned a 1966 Barracuda with the 273 V8, remembered, "It wasn't as fast as some of the other muscle cars, but I loved how it felt behind the wheel. It was small and nimble, and I could easily zip around town. The V8 gave it a little more punch, but it still wasn't anything too wild. For what it was, though, it was a great car." However, as the muscle car craze of the late 1960s took over, Plymouth realized the need to evolve the Barracuda into something more powerful to compete with cars like the Mustang, Camaro, and the burgeoning muscle car market. By 1967, the Barracuda was completely redesigned and became a much more aggressive vehicle, with V8 engines up to the 383 cubic inch unit and eventually the mighty 426 Hemi. The early Barracudas, by contrast, the 1967 Chevrolet Corvette L88 is often regarded as one of the most iconic and elusive performance cars in American automotive history. Engineered with an intense focus on raw power and racing performance, the L88 Corvette was not just another high-performance car. It was built with the purpose of dominating racetracks and offering an experience unlike any other production vehicle of its time. However, despite its remarkable capabilities and sheer presence, the L88 has remained somewhat of a hidden gem in the eyes of most enthusiasts and car collectors, often overshadowed by other muscle cars from the era. The L88 Corvette was essentially a factory-built race car that happened to be street legal. While the standard Corvette in 1967 already offered impressive performance, the L88 took things to another level entirely. At the heart of the L88 was a 427 cubic inch, 7.0-liter V8 engine, capable of producing an astounding 430 horsepower, although many believe the actual output was closer to 500 horsepower, thanks to its highly tuned components and aggressive camshaft. This engine was paired with a Muncie M21 4-speed manual transmission, a heavy-duty rear axle, and a suspension system designed to withstand the extreme forces of high-speed driving and cornering. The L88 was not designed for comfort or ease of driving. Instead, it was meant to be a track-ready beast, prepared to take on the best in racing competitions. The engine was fitted with higher compression, a high-flow Holley carburetor, and heavy-duty parts that required the owner to maintain a meticulous eye on the car's performance. The car's aggressive nature meant that it was difficult for most average drivers to handle. This was not a car for casual cruises or city driving. It was built for speed, and that speed came with a price. Handling and maintenance could be challenging for those unprepared for its ferocious power. Despite its extraordinary performance potential, the L88 was an option that few buyers opted for. Only 20 L88 Corvettes were built in 1967, making it an incredibly rare model. The price for the L88 option was steep, around $1,000, which in 1967 was an astronomical sum, especially when you consider that the base price of a Corvette was already high. Most buyers found the L88 to be too extreme for street driving, and with only a small handful of customers opting for it, the L88 Corvette remains one of the most exclusive and sought-after Corvettes today. This rarity, however, is part of what makes the L88 Corvette so desirable among collectors. The L88 became a legend not just because of its raw power, but because of its racing pedigree. Chevrolet designed the L88 with input from some of the best minds in motorsports, including Bill Mitchell, and aimed to compete with the likes of the Shelby Cobra and other racing machines of the time. Its success on the track, despite its limited production, solidified its place in Corvette history. The L88's legacy is not just one of raw power, it also had a deep connection to Corvette's racing success. The 1967 L88 was often used by privateer racers and had a strong presence in the SCCA, Sports Car Club of America, and other racing series. However, it was never truly officially campaigned by Chevrolet, as they didn't want to risk their reputation by fielding a car that was so extreme and difficult to maintain. Despite its racing prowess, the L88 Corvette was almost a secret. Chevrolet took steps to ensure that only the most serious performance enthusiasts would even consider the L88 option. The car came without many creature comforts or features like air conditioning or power steering, which made it less appealing to casual buyers. Instead, it was a purpose-built machine for those who understood its performance capabilities and were willing to take on the responsibility of maintaining such a high-performance car. Owner reviews of the L88 Corvette, especially from those who had the privilege of driving or racing it, often mention the car's brutal power and the adrenaline rush it provided. One owner, John P., recalls, "It was a completely different animal than anything else I've driven. The power was ridiculous. If you pressed the throttle, it just went, no hesitation, no drama, just pure speed. But you had to respect it. It was a car that demanded your full attention at all times." Another owner, Rick D., who had an L88 Corvette in the late 1960s, remembers, "It was a machine, plain and simple. You couldn't just jump in and go. It was temperamental, needed constant attention. But when it ran, it was a race car on the streets. I remember taking it to the track and having guys with other muscle cars shaking their heads, knowing they were outmatched." The L88's mystique and its reputation as a car built with racing in mind have only increased over the years. As a result, the 1967 Chevrolet Corvette L88 has become one of the most valuable and sought-after models for serious collectors. The 1960 and 1961 DeSoto Adventurer is a unique and often overlooked chapter in the history of American performance cars. Produced by DeSoto, a brand that would eventually fade from the automotive landscape, the Adventurer was designed to capture the spirit of a sports coupe while embodying the bold, elegant styling typical of the late 1950s and early 1960s. With only a brief production run, it's become a rare gem that remains relatively obscure to many car enthusiasts, despite its considerable impact during its time. The DeSoto Adventurer was built during an era when American automakers were pushing the boundaries of design, performance, and luxury, and the Adventurer was no exception. The car's styling was a bold mix of sharp lines and sweeping curves, with a pronounced front grille, large tail fins, and a wide, low stance that screamed performance. It wasn't just about aesthetics, however. Beneath the hood was a potent V8 engine that provided more than enough power to back up its aggressive appearance. The Adventurer was offered with the 361 cubic inch V8 engine, which produced around 305 horsepower, paired with a torque flight automatic transmission for smooth shifting and power delivery. This engine gave the car enough muscle to offer respectable acceleration and top-end speed, which was impressive for a car of its size. What set the Adventurer apart, though, was its blend of performance with luxury. Inside, the cabin was fitted with high-end materials, such as leather upholstery and rich wood accents, showcasing DeSoto's ambition to deliver a more refined driving experience than many of its contemporaries. The Adventurer's interior offered comfort for long drives while maintaining an edge of sportiness with bucket seats and a driver-focused dashboard design. It combined style, performance, and comfort in a way that was rare for American cars at the time. Despite its considerable features and performance, the DeSoto Adventurer never found the commercial success that many had hoped for. DeSoto was a division of Chrysler, but by the early 1960s, the brand was struggling to maintain its relevance in an increasingly competitive automotive market. The Adventurer was part of a larger effort to rejuvenate the brand, but its production was short-lived. In 1961, just 2 years after its debut, the model was discontinued as DeSoto made the difficult decision to cease production altogether. The brand's downfall was influenced by a combination of factors, including changing consumer tastes, the rise of more successful competitors, and the brand's inability to innovate at the same rate as its rivals. As a result of its short lifespan, the DeSoto Adventurer is one of the rarest cars of its era. Only a limited number of these cars were produced, making them highly sought after by collectors today. Many of these cars were either scrapped or left to deteriorate, so finding one in good condition is a rare occurrence. This rarity, combined with the Adventurer's distinctive styling and its place in DeSoto's final years, has made it an intriguing collectible for classic car enthusiasts. However, due to its obscurity and the relative lack of mainstream recognition, the Adventurer has remained largely forgotten by the general public. Owner reviews and accounts of those who have had the chance to own or drive a DeSoto Adventurer often highlight the car's unique presence on the road. One owner, Bill M., who restored a 1960 Adventurer, recalls, "It wasn't the fastest car on the block, but it sure had presence. When you drove it, people looked. The design was unlike anything else at the time. Those tail fins were massive, and the whole car just felt like it was from the future." Another owner, Robert J., who has a 1961 model, adds, "The Adventurer is a car you drive to experience. It's not as much about straight-line speed as it is about feeling the road and the luxury of that era. The steering is heavy, the suspension is soft, but it all adds to that vintage charm. I can't think of anything quite like it." Despite these positive experiences, the DeSoto Adventurer is often overshadowed by other muscle cars and performance models from the same era. Cars like the Chevrolet Corvette, Pontiac GTO, and Ford Mustang often take the spotlight when discussing American performance vehicles of the early 1960s, but the Adventurer holds a special place for those who value rarity and distinctive design. The DeSoto Adventurer is, without a doubt, a forgotten gem in the world of American muscle cars. Its combination of power, style, and luxury make it a noteworthy example of what American automakers were trying to achieve in an era when performance and refinement were just beginning to converge. Although it didn't have the lasting legacy of some of its contemporaries, the Adventurer remains a testament to the ambitious spirit of DeSoto, a brand that, although no longer with us, will always be remembered by those who appreciate the rare. The Plymouth GTX, produced from 1967 to 1971, is one of those classic American muscle cars that doesn't always receive the recognition it deserves despite its performance and bold presence. Developed as a performance-focused variant of the Barracuda, the GTX was designed to take on the likes of the Pontiac GTO and the Chevrolet Chevelle SS, yet it has often flown under the radar compared to its contemporaries. From the outset, the GTX was built with power in mind. The car was equipped with a range of high-performance engines, including the 440 cubic-inch V8, and was available with an optional 426 Hemi V8, which was one of the most potent engines in the muscle car era. With horsepower figures that could easily rival some of the best American muscle cars, the GTX was engineered for straight-line performance. However, what truly set the GTX apart was not just its engine, but its unique combination of luxury and performance. While it certainly had the raw power that muscle cars are known for, the GTX was also designed with a level of refinement that made it stand out from the more basic, stripped-down muscle cars of the time. It featured a more comfortable interior, with bucket seats, a premium dashboard, and other upscale features, all of which helped make the GTX an appealing option for those who wanted both performance and luxury. The styling of the GTX was aggressive yet refined, with a long hood, sculpted lines, and a stance that screamed muscle. It had the look of a car that meant business. But despite its impressive combination of performance and styling, The GTX has often been overshadowed by other muscle cars from the era. This is in part because, while the Barracuda was a popular model, the GTX didn't carry the same level of fame and recognition. It also faced stiff competition from cars like the Chevrolet Chevelle SS, Pontiac GTO, and Ford Mustang, all of which were highly successful and had larger fan bases. Even though the GTX offered a comparable, if not superior, performance experience, it didn't have the same cultural impact as some of those other models. One of the reasons the Plymouth GTX remains an unsung hero is its relatively short production run. Although it lasted from 1967 until 1971, it was ultimately discontinued after 1971 due to tightening emission regulations and shifting consumer tastes. Despite its relatively limited production, the GTX remained a favorite of car enthusiasts during its time and has become increasingly sought after by collectors today. The rarity of the car, combined with its strong performance credentials, has made it a prized possession for those who appreciate the golden age of American muscle cars. Owner reviews of the Plymouth GTX often highlight its unique combination of muscle and luxury. John D., a longtime owner of a 1969 GTX, recalls, "It's the best of both worlds. It has the brutal power you want in a muscle car, but it also has the comfort and style you don't always expect from cars like this. It's a true performer, but you can still take it on a long road trip without feeling like you're driving a race car with no amenities." Another owner, Greg W., who has a 1970 GTX, shares, "The 440 in mine is just pure muscle. You step on the wow and it pulls like nothing else. But it's the balance of performance and comfort that really makes it special. It's not just a car, it's an experience." While the GTX didn't achieve the iconic status of cars like the GTO or Chevelle SS, it is a highly respected model among muscle car enthusiasts, and it certainly holds a special place in the history of American performance cars. The GTX offered a performance experience that was on par with, if not better than, many of its rivals, but it had the added bonus of being a car that could also be driven comfortably every day. Today, the Plymouth GTX is celebrated for its underrated performance and unique place in muscle car history. It may not have been the most famous muscle car of the era, but it remains one of the most beloved by those who appreciate its combination of style, performance, and refinement. For many enthusiasts, the GTX is an unsung hero in the annals of American performance cars, a car that did everything well but somehow slipped under the radar of mainstream recognition. It may not be as widely known as some of its contemporaries, but for those who seek a classic muscle car with true pedigree, the GTX is a rare and exciting find. The Oldsmobile Toronado, produced from 1966 to 1970, stands as one of the most innovative and bold American cars of its era. While many people associate Oldsmobile with luxury cars, the Toronado was something much more, a game changer in the automotive world. With its radical front-wheel drive layout and powerful V8 engine, the Toronado was a true pioneer in a time when rear-wheel drive was the norm. It offered a performance that set it apart from its contemporaries and laid the groundwork for future luxury and performance cars. The Toronado's most striking feature was its front-wheel drive system. At a time when nearly every car on the market utilized rear-wheel drive, Oldsmobile's decision to use front-wheel drive was groundbreaking. This engineering innovation, which was based on a system borrowed from the European luxury cars of the time, allowed for a more spacious interior by eliminating the drive shaft tunnel that usually ran through the center of the car. It also provided better traction in certain driving conditions, especially in wet or slippery environments, which made the Toronado an attractive option for drivers seeking both luxury and performance. Under the hood, the Toronado was powered by a 425 cubic inch V8 engine, which generated an impressive 385 horsepower in its initial iteration. This made the Toronado a powerful contender, capable of competing with some of the top muscle cars of the era. While it wasn't marketed as a muscle car, it had the power to go toe-to-toe with any of them on the road. The combination of a strong engine and front-wheel drive layout allowed for a unique driving experience, smooth, quiet, and surprisingly capable for its size. The 1966 Toronado could accelerate from 0 to 60 mph in under 8 seconds, which was impressive for a car that wasn't specifically designed as a performance machine. Beyond its engineering, the Toronado also featured a bold and futuristic design. The car's long, sleek body, wide stance, and aggressive front end gave it an imposing presence on the road. Inside, the Toronado was as luxurious as any high-end personal car of the time, with plush seats, high-quality materials, and a smooth, quiet cabin. It combined the power and performance of a sports car with the comfort and refinement of a luxury vehicle, making it a unique offering in the automotive market. Despite its performance and groundbreaking design, the Toronado was often overshadowed by other muscle cars of the era. While the muscle car movement was in full swing in the late 1960s, cars like the Chevrolet Chevelle SS and Ford Mustang captured more attention. The Toronado, however, didn't fit neatly into the muscle car category. It was marketed more as a personal luxury car, but its performance and engineering innovations were ahead of their time. Today, the Toronado is often seen as a forgotten gem, overshadowed by the flashier, more well-known cars of the era. Owner reviews of the Toronado are often filled with admiration for its uniqueness and performance. Greg S., who has owned a 1968 Toronado for over a decade, says, "The first time you drive one, you can't believe how smooth and powerful it is. It's like nothing else from the 60s. You've got all that muscle under the hood, but it's still a comfortable cruiser." It's a car that turns heads even today. Another owner, Carla W., who has restored a 1969 Toronado, comments, "It's a car that's often overlooked, but if you appreciate the engineering that went into it, you'll love it. The front-wheel drive system makes it handle unlike anything else, and the ride is so smooth. I always feel like I'm driving a piece of history whenever I take it out." While the Toronado didn't achieve the widespread recognition of other muscle cars or luxury cars from its era, it remains a beloved classic among those who understand its significance. Its front-wheel drive innovation, powerful engine, and stylish design give it a unique place in American automotive history. The Toronado may not have been a bestseller, but for those who seek a car that blends performance with luxury and innovative engineering, it stands as a truly unique and groundbreaking vehicle. It's a reminder of an era when American car makers were pushing the boundaries of what was possible, and the Toronado will always be remembered as one of their finest creations.